All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's agent development training. This is the last ADT before the craziness of Medicare annual enrollment begins. So I hope everyone is prepared and ready for that. Those of you that are engaged in it. I will say if you're in a situation where you're not involved in Medicare this fall, we definitely want to get you involved in Medicare next spring. And so we will have an opportunity. I think it's a really, really good idea for agents to go through one AEP, OEP season, um, focusing on the under 65 space before they jump into, the full-blown dual AEP, OEP season with both the under 65 and the over 65. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue the agent development trainings through the end of the year. We may take one or two off, but I think we're trying to deliver content, especially for the newer agents, every single week. And we've got a lot that's going on, from technology rollouts and VanillaSoft updates, and the Yext platform just launched, and we're trying to wrap our heads around what that is and what that means. We're going to bring in some subject matter experts and some heavy users of VanillaSoft here in the next couple of weeks as well. So there's a lot of different things we're going to be using this ADT to push out content through. We don't really have a ton of meetings left here, at least for our Indiana agents. I'm not sure what Gary and Tyler are doing up in Michigan, but we don't have a ton of meetings scheduled over the next 70 days just because of the craziness that we're all getting ready to jump into. So I'm excited about what we're going to accomplish, though, because I do think this is going to be the most chaotic, volatile AEP OEP season we've ever seen. But I think embedded within that is a tremendous amount of opportunity, especially for those of you that are new, because you can do a pretty large land grab in a pretty short period of time. So excited to see what we're able to do together. I did want to give everybody a quick reminder that there is an agency compliance training that is due. We've been trying to promote that at every turn. If you guys go into the Learning Center, it's been pre-assigned to you. And I'd recommend you get that done before we get into, obviously, the AEP, OEP activities. So if you could knock that out, that'd be great. We got a lot of different things that we're going to try to cover today. I will say that one of the big things that I just want to show you guys, because I learned something earlier this week with our technology that I didn't know existed, and I'm not certain many people knew existed. So just a little context. 6 weeks ago, when we moved from the old CRM to VanillaSoft, we lost the ability to initiate electronic FactFinder from the contact record or the household inside of the CRM. And I've always been a big fan of our FactFinder. I believe a fact-finding tool not only covers your butt, it's a defensive maneuver, but it's also offensive because it allows you to open up the conversation to products and gaps and holes that maybe the client didn't even understand that they had. So I've always been a big proponent of utilizing a FactFinder, but it became more difficult for us to use our existing FactFinder once we went to VanillaSoft. Well, I was on a call yesterday morning. I've got a project that I'm working on with Cliff Carthauser and with Renee Pena, who's a sales leader in Texas, and Daniel Smith, who's a sales leader in Florida. And we're putting together a new agent training cookbook. We're actually taking best practices from what Daniel Smith does with his team, because he is the live transfer king, I would say, and him and his team are. And then combining what we're doing from a local marketing and referral practice standpoint, and we're trying to kind of create multiple paths for agents to travel down. And so in the course of this conversation, Renee Pena mentioned yesterday that they still use the electronic fact finder. And I said, well, how are you doing that? Because from VanillaSoft, we can't be in VanillaSoft and initiate a fact finder. And she walked me through something that I didn't even know existed. And so I want to show you guys a couple of things here. First of all, I want to pull up, I had shown you guys or shared this with you guys, and I think many of you are using it. It's our fact finder for live transfers. And Megan helped me to complete this and fill this out. I basically took what Daniel Smith had built for his team and what his agents are finding success with, and we built it out into a fact-finding questions document that you can walk through with the client right from the moment they get on the phone to kind of walk you through. And then it moves into closing the sale and then gathering the final information you need to execute the applications. And so this process is a process that we've been teaching for a while. And you can see that the first page and a half or so of this is basically fact finding, right? A lot of these questions are directly from the fact finder. It's just gathering basic demographic information, asking about life insurance, all the way up. These first 17 questions are really fact finding related, questions. If you're using Daniel Smith's platform here, you've got to manually data enter everything here, and then you've got to go to Quote Connect as you begin to quote, and you got to re-enter everything, or you got to put it into VanillaSoft and then quote out or port out to Quote Connect to actually do it. What I found out yesterday, though, is there's a different way and a different process that you can use. I told Justin, I baited Justin Wired a little bit and said, I got something new for you. So if you guys come in here, and I'm on the main screen of the Resource Center, if you come in here and click on Agent Connect, and you get logged into Agent Connect, what you're going to notice is on the left-hand side here, you actually have a Fact Finder link, and you also have over here a Fact Finder link that you can see. And if you click on either one of these, I can click on my fact finders. Actually, if I click on view all, this opens up inside of Agent Connect. Now, I'm not in the CRM or anything, but inside of Agent Connect, it actually opens up this fact finder platform. And what you can do is you can actually initiate a fact finder directly from here, assuming it loads properly. Yes. So you can see I started to play with this a little bit yesterday, and I ran a John Doe yesterday for over 65. But in this fact finder area on Agent Connect, what you've got to do is you just start a new fact finder form. And I'm really thinking that we need to change our best practices, and we're going to update training and things around this as well, because a couple of things can happen. First of all, you can immediately link this fact finder back to your contact in VanillaSoft. So you can link the contact back to it immediately right out of the gate. But you can come in here, and I'm going to put in just some basic information, but you can work your way through this electronic fact finder then, which is all the information that we're trying to compile. I'm just going to put in the most, not all of this is required. You can see that there's an asterisk by it. It is required, but this takes you through getting their zip code, their phone number, all their demographic information. Are they married? Number of children, estimated household income, date of birth, height and weight for everybody, tobacco usage. You click on next. It asks questions about whether or not they're self-employed. You click next. It goes into spouse demographic information. We're not going to have a spouse, so I'm going to click next. And then this is spouse occupation information. And then you get into your child information. If there's children, you can enter everything here. So to me, this is going to replace that first page and a half of Daniel Smith's Fact Finder, because you can put in their address and zip codes and everything, and you can click on next page. And there's then information about their current health plan. None of this is required, but if you want to, however deep you want to go into asking these questions, you click next, you get into medical history. You can add prescriptions right here as well. You click next, and this is one of the biggest questions I think you can ask, especially in the under 65 space. If a major illness or injury caused you to miss work, how long would you be able to continue to pay your monthly bills without income? And then from there, you can move into the rest of the questions in the fact finder. And then last but not least, you have your life insurance questions. So you can do as little or as much of that as you want. There are a few things that are asterisks that you have to fill in. And when you click next page here, oh, I'm sorry, this goes into your life insurance needs analysis then with the dime technique for your spouse, your financial snapshot, concerns.
Quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
When you fill this out, will it then, if there's no contact in the CRM yet, will it create one?
So it's not going to then this is what I've figured out. It's not taking it into VanillaSoft. What happens when you get to the end of this is it actually asks you, you can put in notes here. And then when you hit submit form, oh crap, I've got a date of birth I got to fill in. Let me fill this in very quickly. But when you fill everything out and you get to the end, Ray, it asks you if you want to, we'll submit form, and then it asks you if you want to start a quote or download a PDF. This is the screen that I had never seen before. And what happens is you can either download this into a PDF where if you want to save it somewhere for, future purposes, that's fine. But if you click on start a quote, what this does then is it ports all that data out into Quote Connect, including medications and doctor information. It allows you to begin a quote then from here. And because it's coming in here, it automatically then creates a file back in VanillaSoft for them. So it creates that contact back in VanillaSoft. So I think about especially live transfers coming in, like why not have that fact finder open, work your way through it, boom, you immediately transition into quoting and enrollment, and you don't have to do any sort of double entry.
Thank you.
Yep. So it's not, and I think this is where people, and I didn't understand that you couldn't do it directly with VanillaSoft, but if you go from the fact finding tool, which is a standalone tool in itself on Agent Connect, and then you hit that, pull it over into Quote Connect, now that's automatically created back in VanillaSoft, and you can then manage the contact from that point forward.
Am
The other
I
thing, go ahead.
if I go right into quote, am I able to go back in and download that PDF?
That's a good question. I think you can, because when you come back to the fact finder section on Agent Connect, that fact finder is right here at the top. And I've got the option to duplicate, delete, or download right here. The other thing that's nice about these is that you can see that this fact finder was created at a certain time. And then there's an updated time. So every time you're completing a fact finder inside of the system, it's time and date stamping it with the information that you were given at that point in time, which really helps from a compliance perspective. If there's a complaint downstream and the client's like, why did you make this recommendation? Well, I can go back to the fact finder that immediately precedes that recommendation that I made, and I've got all the updated information there. And each time that you go in, so like if I'm meeting with this client then again later this year and I want to update the fact finder, I can come back to the existing fact finder and I can duplicate it. And it's going to take all the information that I entered in, repopulate it in. So all I'm now doing is updating things. And then that new one will be time and date stamped with the newest date and time, which is pretty sweet too. So there's this whole tile on the Agent Connect dashboard specific to fact finders. And again, it doesn't necessarily immediately integrate with VanillaSoft or anything like that. You've got to go through the quoting, you got to push out to quoting, and then it will load it back into VanillaSoft for you. We've actually played with it a little bit and we found out the exact same thing works in the over 65 market. Like if you're taking a Medicare live transfer and you wanted to put client's information in and start there. I think live transfers are probably the one place where this might make the most sense. Although I would say any lead in your VanillaSoft, if you're getting to the point where you're at a fact-finding part of the sales process, like you can't initiate the fact finder from VanillaSoft, but you could go out to Agent Connect, create a new fact finder, and then link the contact and pull that data in, and then just continue from there. So I can't tell you I'm a subject matter expert. I have known about this for 25 hours right now, and I've played with it a few times, but I wanted to make you all aware of it. Justin, what are your thoughts? I know you're working live transfers. Is this something that could maybe reduce the amount of data entry or duplicate data entry that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you're, having to enter things multiple times, there's that risk of putting something in wrong. And it saves you time. My only, I guess, issue is I wish it would go right into VanillaSoft rather than having to go through Quote Connect. Because Quote Connect is I have issues with Quote Connect. It's slow and stuff. So sometimes I just want to jump into Health Sherpa or go to a broker portal.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely I'm going to try that tonight.
I've already asked for that capability for it just to port directly into VanillaSoft. Just say have it, and instead of quoting, go straight to VanillaSoft there. I think that would be super helpful as well. And then once that is in VanillaSoft, all that information, then you can port out, to whatever platform you want from there. So honestly, like I'm under the impression right now that our corporate tech team didn't understand that this worked this way. I got to give Renee Pena tremendous credit because she's kind of the one who actually figured it out. So
Silas, are we taking it that you're asking the VanillaSoft team to actually incorporate this directly so that we go to VanillaSoft? Then
I'm having trouble hearing you, Kevin. I'm sorry. Can you speak up or maybe get closer to your mic?
yeah, I'm across the room.
That's it. That's the problem.
So, are we understanding this correctly that you're asking the VanillaSoft team to have a direct link to do the fact finder instead of 3 different stops?
No, what I'm asking is that when you get to the end of the fact finder, that there be a link so that it creates a new contact in VanillaSoft immediately from there. That's what I've asked.
So can we go the other way and have this directly available in VanillaSoft too?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you do the fact finder and then you click a button at the end and it loads it into VanillaSoft for you.
Okay.
I think the other direction where you're in VanillaSoft and creating a fact finder from VanillaSoft is on the rollout map, but I think it's after AEP is over. So I'm like, we've got this capability here. Why not? If we can get that going, and I just think it could streamline things for AEP, OEP season if we can get this piece fixed. I don't think we'll get that other one quite yet. Other questions, thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Paul. You'll have to unmute.
Yep, there you go. Obviously, I'm just getting rolling. I haven't done too much with VanillaSoft, but I'm just wondering, Justin was mentioning that PDF. Could you take that PDF, download it, and then import it into VanillaSoft and then have that in there? I don't know, just a thought, just something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I don't think you could import it, but you could attach it to a client record or a prospect record as an attachment. So it's a PDF attachment that would be there. So that would be another way to store it inside of VanillaSoft. So that'd be a very simple way to do it too.
Okay, and maybe I'll take a look at it more, and I'll be catching up with Justin with some live transfer stuff in the next day, but that was just on my mind. But what you presented with that, I think, sounds like a huge game changer based on kind of what I learned in the classroom, and being able to do it that way is really going to speed up the process.
Yep, I totally agree. And again, one data point, one data entry, right? So, and I'll tell you guys, those fact finders are very valuable. I've worked through a number of complaints against agents over the years. Fortunately, we don't have too many complaints, but I will tell you, when you have visual documentation of why you made the recommendation that you did, to me, that's like trump card on top of anything a client's trying to accuse you of, right? So the more you can document, the more you can put notes in, the more you can, have things in VanillaSoft, inputting your notes along the way. I think it can be really valuable. Cav, I know you and I talked yesterday. Did you have a chance to play with it at all? Do you have any thoughts or comments?
No, again, I'm not a big live transfer guy, but I can see the value in doing that with live transfers, just to, again, grab the information in a compliant document. Okay, I mean, I like what Daniel Smith put together, but if there's not a number on the bottom, I don't know. And again, I don't even know if there is because I haven't paid attention to it, but if something happens and the company wants to see that, you're much better off just having this information in a compliant fact finder.
Yep,
So
I would totally agree. So any other questions about that? I'll be getting some additional feedback from home office on that, but any other questions?
Well, I will say that we have been using this. Maddie has been inputting, using that fact finder, and not knowing that it would transfer over. She would then put it in VanillaSoft, but you don't have to go to Quote Connect for it to end up in VanillaSoft. She said, because all she's been doing is saving the PDF and emailing it to us. And the information is in VanillaSoft. Once you have it in that fact finder.
So once you enter it into the fact finder, you believe that it's automatically going into VanillaSoft?
Yes, because, and Maddie, you can speak up, don't be shy. But so when she's done this, then she did not know that, because she's just basically giving us the fact finder sheet for a hard copy while we're working with the client. And then she didn't know that it would transfer. So then she would enter it again and it was already there.
And then you're creating duplicates.
So, I mean, just test it, play with it. Just, I mean, who cares? You got to click Quote Connect, but,
and that's what I was told by Renee. I'll be honest with you. I did not do a fact finder and then just go straight to VanillaSoft and see if it was there. So I will do some playing with that here today as well and try to get out some additional information. Sandra?
Yeah, so Tanya just shared with me that she did this yesterday. She did the FactFinder and it actually did put the information into VanillaSoft. She didn't go to Quote Connect.
It's a much smoother transition.
And it was a much smoother transition.
And
Hot damn, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear
So,
that.
but I'd say everybody take a moment to test it out for yourselves. I am.
I will take no credit for any of that because I asked for something that maybe already existed. So, but thank you for that, Tanya. Thanks for chiming in, Laura. That's really great to hear. So play with it and see. I mean, I'd say run yourself through it and see what happens, right? Play with that link because there is that link to a contact too. Play with that and see how that works because you want to try to kind of figure that out before the craziness begins to roll here. So I wanted to pivot over and talk a little bit about AEP and OEP and really just kind of open things up a little bit to if there are questions, concerns, things that you guys needed any clarity on. You know, I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time on it, but I also want to make sure we're giving you guys the forums and the venues to be able to ask questions around anything related to AEP at this point. You know, the pre-AEP season begins tomorrow, and I know a lot of us we've got 13, I think, or maybe 15 agents that are doing plan review workshops with their existing clients. I think that's going to be a big win, and we'll do more after action on that once we get done with the season and kind of help some of you prep for next year for doing this because I do think this is going to be really valuable. I know I've got almost 120 prospects or that are actually clients that are coming into seminar or workshop type settings. And, you know, I think about the impact of that. My goodness, if I'm taking 120 1-hour client meetings off of my schedule, for this next 70-day window, like that's a huge game changer. And I know some of you, I think Kevin had over 600 that had actually registered for his plan review workshops. So that is kind of crazy. I'm excited about tomorrow. I don't have a lot planned tomorrow. And if you're in the Medicare space, I would encourage you to carve out some time tomorrow to get into get into Connecture, because there's going to be a couple of things that should pop tomorrow with Connecture. Number one, all the new plans should be available. So you can begin dissecting by market, by carrier, by PPO versus HMO, just really looking at what's available. Those plans should also be notated as either commissionable or non-commissionable. We do have a larger number of products that will be non-commissionable this year than we've ever had previously. So that should all be available and active in Connecture starting tomorrow. And then the last thing that we're going to do some digging into, I want to dig into tomorrow, is this Connecture Active Analytics program that Health Markets has paid for us to have access to. If you guys aren't familiar with that, what that is designed to be is it's designed to be an overview of all the clients that you actually have in Connecture, that you've done enrollments through Connecture on over the last couple of years. And it's going to slice and dice them by the ones that are the most impacted by changes. And I think there's like 15 or 16 or 17 different categories that are going to be like marked out. So things like if there's a service area reduction or if a plan's being canceled, that group of clients will, you'll be able to see exactly who they are. There will actually be an overview of what's happening. And then there will be suggested communications, both text and email, I believe. Communications suggested that you can copy and paste that are compliance approved that you can use to communicate with that particular group, you know, of impacted clients. There's also other things that will this active analytics will be sorting out. You know, things like you have a client in there on a high dollar medication, and maybe that high dollar medication is not on the formulary list for the plan that you enrolled them in. That type of individual will be flagged. There will also be some flags around doctors and providers. So like if you have a specialist in the profile for one of your clients and they're on a plan where it doesn't look like that doctor is going to be in network, that will also be flagged as well. Now, one thing I would just mention is that probably the biggest issue that we've had over the years with any technology platform is identifying whether doctors are truly in network or out of network with specific plans. And I know it can be frustrating because you know, we're paying a bunch of money to have access to this tool that's supposed to tell us doctors that are in and out of network, but there's still, I would say, a lack of complete accuracy on any of these tools. And we've dealt with that for many, many years. So I think part of it is using common sense and also using the carrier portals. You need to be very, very familiar with the major carriers and their portals and their doc finder tools so that if you have a question and you're in Connecture and it's showing one of their primary doctors or specialists that aren't in network, you know what to do to pivot and go just verify that, elsewhere. So there are multiple sources you can pull from. I would say the most accurate source that I would trust the most is the carrier doc lookup. So Connecture is pulling information from various sources and trying to get it right, but I can tell you my experience has been it's never been perfect. So just know that and understand that. But this active analytic tool is supposed to give us the breakdown of, what clients are going to be most impacted and which clients we really need to be, chasing down and reaching out to because something significant is changing in their plan for next year or their medications. So do you guys have any questions about AEP, active analytics, Connecture, anything there that needs to be discussed?
I have something to offer.
Please.
As you know, I do a spreadsheet every year,
Mhm.
and I will finalize that. I'm spending all day tomorrow actually pulling the plan's summary of benefits from Connecture. I'm using St. Joe County in Indiana and Berrien County in Michigan, and I put all those data points on a spreadsheet along with my comments and observations of each plan. And I will share that with you so that you can get that out to the entire team.
That's awesome, Ray. I appreciate that, and I'll absolutely send that out. And I would tell you guys, I mean, this is one reason why Ray is probably the top Medicare writer ever to be a part of the organization. And I'm not just saying our organization, I'm saying nationwide. Is a lot of it is being a student of his business and understanding where the sweet spots are. And I would tell you, you've got to spend some time pouring through product if you're going to operate in the space for the markets that you're going to serve. And I think a wonderful way, and what Ray has done historically each year, is he just lines these plans up side by side by side by side so that he can do a bit of an analysis.
And part of that spreadsheet also is that in a perfect world, if you never went to the doctor, never used the plan at all, it'll tell you how much it costs. So even if it's a give back, it's a negative cost. Plus, I'll add the full dental benefit into that only if it allows dentures. So I add that number in, and then glasses and used to be Flex Card was on there, and then over the counter. And so that's in a best case scenario. Then I do a medium scenario, and it'll actually show you what's in that. Like it's like 10 doctor visits and 3 days in the hospital kind of thing, and one tier 3 medication, and then there will be a cost for that. And then worst case scenario, I max out everything and what that cost is. So there's 3 cost scenarios for each plan in the spreadsheet as well, just really pointing out any glaring, when you've got like a $9,000 max out of pocket on a give back plan, that can really warp it in the worst case scenario, but it also gives you information that you need to cross sell if you're going to sell that plan. So
Yeah.
that's how you would read the document.
Well, and I think this is why you're so well versed on the products is because you're doing this due diligence and being a student of your business on the front end. And there's no better way to do it than you're basically taking notes on every product and plugging it in. And the act of doing that, I've always said that I'm a better agent because I train this stuff, right? Anytime you're training and teaching and stuff like this or putting that together, you're being a student of your business, and it makes you better at what you do. So Ray, I appreciate that. Do you have any other thoughts or comments around AEP or what you're seeing that needs to be shared with this group?
Well, since the majority of the people on the call are new, I wanted to actually say this at our territory meeting, but I needed to leave. Don't panic, I guess is this is extremely overwhelming, particularly for someone who's never had the experience of learning all these different products, and every county is different, and then hearing us veterans all talking about how this is the most complicated AEP in the history of mankind, which is a true statement actually. But my point would be flip it around and make the glass half full instead of half empty, in that I will promise you, anytime there is chaos, we always come out ahead. Chaos creates opportunity, and we have technology now where it's almost not going to let you make a mistake. I mean, unless you misspelled the prescription and it ended up being a different prescription than they actually had, some human error like that, it's going to tell you whether they're covered, whether they're not covered. Use the technology, and you won't make mistakes because it won't even let you complete the application unless you do it properly. So you've got a lot of guardrails up to help you get. I equate it to a bowling ball going down the alley, and when you used to take your kids bowling and you put the rails up, I mean, the ball's gonna get to the pins. Don't worry about it. Don't be perfect. You can't be perfect. You'll never get anything done. Just get out there. The best experience is actually going and doing it, and sell something, make money, have fun. Is that good?
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, man. Appreciate what you're doing and how you've led from the front on this. I would say the reason our team is where we are because in Medicare is because you led the way very, very early in your career, along with a few others, to get us on this Medicare train. And it's been extremely lucrative for many of us. But I would also echo what Ray said, use Connecture. If you're trying to do an analysis without leveraging Connecture, I think you're missing the boat. Same thing with the ACA, use Health Sherpa. Well, both of these technologies, Connecture and Health Sherpa, have become very robust technology platforms. And so you have to be a student of your business on those too. Both of these systems have trainings and videos and webinars that they're running here. I would encourage you, some of them are done for health markets, others are just done like for the general public. So go jump on anything that you can. And so make sure you understand the platform and how to leverage it and use it. Go poke around in it tomorrow, become an expert on Connecture tomorrow. As we prep for OEP, which starts November 1st, I just have a few thoughts around that because many of you are not doing Medicare this year. And so you're diving deep into the under 65 space. I would say, number one, I do think you need to become an expert on Health Sherpa, and there's an enormous amount of enhancements that have been added to Health Sherpa this year. One thing that I've asked my team to start doing and figuring out is you can actually go into Health Sherpa now and you can pull in all of the clients that you have in healthcare.gov into Health Sherpa, whether or not you've done an enrollment through Health Sherpa in the past with them or not. I would think that before we get to November 1st, that's something you want to do. You want to have all of your existing ACA clients pulled into Health Sherpa. And there's actually a process to do that where Health Sherpa, you're basically going out and you're importing all of those from healthcare.gov and just pulling that data into Health Sherpa so they're there and ready to manage and work, come 11/1. So that would be one big thing I would say. Number two, I think that you've got to start, if you have an existing book of business, you need to start communicating with them. So whether you're using your VanillaSoft calendar or something like Calendly or Full Slate, I think, this next week is the right time to reach out to those under 65 clients and have them start scheduling appointments on your schedule. I truly believe that we probably need to touch or talk to every single under 65 client that we have during the open enrollment season. There's going to be a couple of things going on. Many of you know this because I keep saying it, but I know the state of Indiana approved a 26% average rate increase for all the health insurance carriers combined. I know in Michigan, like Priority, I think was close to a 20% rate increase that was approved by the state. So rates are going up next year, and there's a really good possibility that the government subsidies are going to go down. I will say this is starting to become a political battle, right? If you're watching the news at all, the Democrats are pushing hard on this government funding bill to get enhanced government subsidies as a part of that. Republicans are pushing back on it. There's about 11 Republicans that are on board with doing government subsidies and the enhanced government subsidies on an extended basis. I think a lot of that's driven by midterm elections and the realities of, subsidies being taken away or going away, but a lot of that is to be determined. So regardless, there's going to be volatility this fall. So I think you got to communicate with your clients, use some sort of a scheduling platform to get people scheduled. Cav, I'm curious. I know you use Full Slate. Do you have any updated numbers on how much your system has helped you and what kind of appointment counts you have scheduled for this year?
Yeah, I'm over 250.
So there's new agents on here that don't even know what that means. Over 250 what?
Scheduled appointments from one email and one text.
You sent them to your scheduling link, and they went on and they self-service scheduled something with you.
Yep.
And you have over 250 scheduled between now and December
December
15th.
15th, yeah.
Yeah. That's a wonderful way. Instead of doing back and forth, guys, I think you need to email and text your Calendly link, especially to your under 65 clients. That's something you need to get on probably this week as far as that's concerned. We
And
really
Medicare people have text too. They can read emails. They have smartphones. A lot of people are like, well, I can't do that in the Medicare space. Well, most of those appointments are Medicare people.
right.
So they can do it.
No reason to meet with your ACA clients until after November 1st. And I probably am not scheduling anything on November 1st or maybe even 2nd. We're probably going to start maybe the 3rd, starting to meet with clients. That gives us 48 hours to make sure that the systems are right, the data is loaded in properly, and it also gives us a minute to run some just local scenarios and understand. I feel like every year with subsidies, we never know how they're going to fall, because even if the enhanced subsidies go away, there are still going to be government subsidies, and those government subsidies are based on an algorithm where the amount of subsidy is directly tied to the cost of the second lowest silver plan in that geography. And so we don't really know until all the plans come into the system around November 1st where those subsidies are going to fall, because it's all based on what company has the second lowest silver plan, and then it all figures and calculates from there. So we've had years where I'm like, oh, I don't think this is going to be a big deal. And it was a huge deal because one plan, one second lowest silver plan, drug everything down or pushed everything up from a subsidy perspective. So I feel like even if we know that enhanced subsidies are going away or staying, we're still not going to have a great picture of what's happening in our backyard until we can get into the software on 11.1 and start running some numbers. I will mention to you, if you want to get a little bit of preliminary information, the Kaiser Family Foundation, KFF, does have a subsidy calculator that's out there for 2026. And it's based on the fact and the idea that enhanced subsidies are going away. But you can go out there and actually look at some scenarios in your zip code in your county. Just Google KFF subsidy calculator 2026, and I think that should bring it up. And then you can go in there and just plug and play a little bit. I will say one of the big things that, so Justin, no, there's no discount for Retire Flow. Sorry, that's just a business expense. We may at some point, but we don't right now. So if you guys go out to KFF, one of the things that you'll realize, and I ran some numbers on this a couple of weeks ago for a presentation I did for a bunch of financial planners. But if these enhanced subsidies fall away, what that means is that there will be what we call a cliff at 400% of the federal poverty level. So what that means is if a family unit based on their household size and their projected adjusted gross income is over 400% of the federal poverty level, and the enhanced subsidies go away, that family or that individual will no longer be eligible for government subsidies of any sort, and they'll just pay the full boat insurance premium. I actually ran some numbers on this for these financial planners, and what we found is that the cliff was at about 83,000 is what we actually could see. I'm going to actually pull this up and show you what I put together here, because this might be helpful. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, you guys can see my screen now, Sandra? Okay. Yep. Okay. So this was just a few of the slides that I'd put together. So this is for the state of Indiana, the average rate increase was 26.3% that was approved by the state of Indiana. You can see that Cigna, UHC, and EM Better were the big ones. what I did is I ran some numbers, and these were for families living in my area, a family of 5, a family of 3, and a family of 2, making various levels of income. And you can see current 2025 subsidies with the enhanced subsidies that were passed by the Biden administration under the Inflation Reduction Act. You can see that a family of 5, they were eligible for pretty significant government subsidies, even up to $150,000 of adjusted gross income. A family of 3, they could get, $5,400 a year of government subsidy, up to $125,000 of adjusted gross income. And it'd go even higher than this because it's kind of a sliding scale the way it's built today. This family of 2, this is a scenario we deal with a lot. People in their early 60s, making $75,000, they get $1,208 a month of government subsidy. At $100,000, they're still getting almost $12,000 a year. And even at $125,000 of adjusted gross income, they're getting significant government subsidies to help offset their insurance premiums. So this is under the current state. If the Biden administration subsidies, these enhanced subsidies, they're scheduled to sunset at the end of the year. That was part of the legislation. So if Congress and Trump don't somehow extend these, this would be the new data that we'd be working under. So that family of 5 at 150,000, they get 0 subsidy. So you can see all these numbers are reduced pretty significantly. The big one being this family of 2, even at 100,000, they're getting nothing. And this family of 2 is 60 or 63, 61 and 63 years old. You're probably looking at what, $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 a month in premium for a bronze plan. So they would be paying that full boat, assuming these subsidies, enhanced subsidies, fall away. And then I also notated here this cliff, because if the enhanced subsidies are no longer intact, what happens is when you hit 400% of the federal poverty level, so 4 times whatever the government sets as a federal poverty level, you get no subsidies if you're over that. And so this becomes a really important number for people to understand, because if you look at this same couple, if this happens at $81,000 of adjusted gross income, they get over $13,000 a year of federal government subsidy. At 82,000, they get 0. That's a huge deal. And if a family is close to this 81,000 mark, I mean, can you imagine somebody coming in at $83,000 and losing 13 grand? I mean, $13,000 on 83,000. I mean, just backing into the math here, divided by 83,000. That's almost 16% of their income, which is craziness. Almost 16% of their income would be spent, the difference of that 13,000 kind of divided into this. So it's worth understanding this. We're going to continue to update you as new updates come out. I don't know where this is all going to land, but I do think it's worth keeping our eye on. If you guys are monitoring news sources and things, keep an eye on what's happening, because this does directly impact not only our business, but our clients and what they're going to be paying this next year. So,
Silas, do you have any updates about Social Security income not being considered taxable income next year?
I don't, but it's the one big beautiful bill. That's the way it's supposed to be happening, is that a certain chunk, and I don't think it's all of it, but a certain chunk of Social Security is no longer going to be taxable, which would help some of those people in their early 60s. Historically, we've counted most of that Social Security income as taxable income, because it usually is. But if the one big beautiful bill that Trump passed, eliminates that, there could be some adjustments there, which would be helpful to those people if they don't have to claim their 30 or 35,000 in Social Security. It would lower their adjusted gross income and hopefully get them, more government subsidies, until.
But for those that are under 65 and on Social Security, if it's not considered taxable, I mean, they're taking their Social Security benefit early. It in essence wipes out their income.
Right. And I think
they're not going to be eligible for Medicaid because they probably have assets.
Well, and that's something we'll have to navigate a little bit. I will tell you guys, as you're working with clients in the under 65 space and helping them qualify for government subsidies, and if they do have the ability to manipulate their income at all, there's manipulation that can be helpful on the top end, like that 81,000, right? That's a big deal. But you also got to be careful on the low end too. I have some clients that say, well, I'm not going to take anything out of retirement this year. I'm just going to live on cash. And so my income is going to be zero. And I'm like, oh, that's not a great thing either, because when you fall below 100 or 138% of the federal poverty level, depending on the state that you're in, you get sucked into the state low income Medicaid program, and you may or may not qualify for that. And it ends up being a bit of a back and forth and kind of a mess. So for those clients that I'm working with, a husband and wife in their early 60s who say, I'm not working, I'm not taking Social Security, or my Social Security is no longer going to be taxed, I still might advise them to talk to their financial planner about taking out a little bit of money each month out of their retirement and creating a little bit of taxable income, because you get them into that $23, $24, $25,000 range annually, they're going to qualify for massive government subsidies, but avoid getting sucked into Medicaid, right? So that's I think there's planning that we can help, and this is where we're advisors. This is where the good counsel and advice that we give can really help clients, both on the top end of whatever that federal subsidy level is, but also on the bottom end. You want to make sure you don't push them too low too.
Silas, I thought that Medicaid only took into account assets when it's they're 65 or older or on disability, or
It's so I would say
it's not factored into under 65.
It
So
is. It can
different
be.
states, first of all, do it differently, right? But there's different qualifications, there's different levels of Medicaid. But for the most part, if somebody's not eligible for a government subsidy because they're a zero income, they do risk being pulled into Medicaid, and there's a potential that they could be denied based on, net worth and assets too. So there's a lot of nuances to that. And I think more than anything, it creates confusion for the client, because if their income's down there, you apply for an ACA plan, they get kicked over to Medicaid. Now they've got to deal with the state low income Medicaid program to figure out whether they're approved or not. If they're not approved, then it creates a special enrollment period for them to come back and get into an ACA plan. So oftentimes I think it's just cleaner if a client has the ability to manipulate their income to just keep them above that threshold, so you don't have to jump through those multiple hoops. And even from an agent and an efficiency perspective, I'd rather touch a client once a year than twice a year or 3 times a year, right? If possible.
So if they were due to their assets, if they were denied Medicaid, they get kicked back over to healthcare.gov. And then if you use that $0 income, they just get kicked back over to
It's a
Well,
mission.
once you're kicked through Medicaid, so once you're denied for Medicaid and you come back over and that creates a special enrollment period and you notate that you've been denied for Medicaid, then it doesn't kick you back to Medicaid. It just gives you a monster subsidy.
Okay. Okay.
I think the other question is are we talking Medicaid, or are we talking Healthy Indiana plan? Because there are some people that qualified for Healthy Indiana, especially during COVID, where Nikki was right. They didn't look at assets. It was just based on their income. So that's the sticky wicket. Now they've kind of gone back to the regular deals where you have to qualify for Medicaid, but there was a lot of people on the call in the last 2 years, you didn't have to worry about assets because the marketplace just said, go to your state. The state said, here's your plan, and that was it.
Yeah, and the same thing in Michigan too, Steve. So
Gab,
they're gonna start doing a deeper dive.
Gab, did you say sticky wicket?
Yeah.
Never heard that before. Sticky wicket. All right.
You haven't, well, okay.
You're so young. You're so young. And
You're so young.
Come on.
Somebody said something yesterday. I was talking to Mike Wayner in Indianapolis, and he said something about chickens coming home to roost. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, what do you mean? That's like a saying. And I'd never heard anything about
It's
chicken.
old people thing, Silas. Again, you're young and naive.
All day long, man.
Yes.
All this still young and naive. I count that as a win. So Stefan actually asked, he said, so if you estimate income at 81,000 and it ends up coming back at 82,000, they would owe back the 13,000 in their tax returns. Unfortunately, yes. And this is something I think as you're talking to your clients this fall, you have to be very articulate about. Now, when you're going through the healthcare.gov application, whether it's in HealthSherpa or on healthcare.gov, there's actually like disclaimers and things saying, I understand that if my income comes back higher than this, I could owe back my government subsidies. But I think we've got to counsel our clients and scare the crap out of them about doing things that create additional taxable income and making sure that they are keeping that income below whatever threshold they put in, especially if there's this cliff, right? If it's a sliding scale, it's not a huge deal. They might owe back a couple hundred or a couple thousand. But if it's a cliff and they owe back $13,000. I've dealt with clients who went through that before, and it's not a pleasant conversation on April 15th. But it's all, and I would also say the other thing where I think we can earn our keep on this as advisors is there are things that clients can do to legally manipulate their income as well. Obviously, if they're a self-employed small business owner, they can make capital investments, put money back into the business, like do things like that. Most people who have earned income can also contribute money into an IRA. And I think it's 7,000 is the max, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly. And so that's a husband and a wife can put $7,000 each into an IRA. Well, not only are they setting money aside for retirement into their individual retirement account, but they're also lowering their adjusted gross income by that 7,000 to that 14,000, which might get them back under that threshold. The other big thing that I'm a big proponent of is health savings accounts. And I'm a big proponent of clients putting money into a health savings account because that also lowers their adjusted gross income. And a couple who's over age 55, I think they can put like almost $10,000 into a health savings account this year. And again, they're setting money aside tax-free to pay for future medical bills. They're not giving that money away to the government. It's just reallocating it into a different bucket and a different pool. And by doing that, they lower their adjusted gross income. So if you think about it, like a couple who's 61 and 62, and they have earned income, they can make 2 IRA contributions, right? So that's 14 grand, and they can put just a little under 10 grand into a health savings account. So they can move their adjusted gross income for the next year by up to $24,000. And typically people have up until April 15th. I know to make the HSA contribution, the IRAs I think need to be made in the year that they're in. I don't know, Jarko, can you confirm that or deny that?
Sorry, Salas, I got distracted. What was the question?
So on an IRA contribution, does that have to be made in the year that you're writing it off, or do you have till April 15th of the next year like you do with HSAs?
Yeah, you have until the date that you file your taxes in the spring. So 15th, 17th, whatever it is.
So for both IRAs and HSAs, the client has up until April 15th of the next year when they file their taxes for the previous year to get that money plugged in. So I have a lot of clients where if they're close to those thresholds, I'm like, talk to your accountant in December and January, figure out where you're landing so that you know what to do to be able to fund HSAs or IRAs and bring that adjusted gross income down a little bit.
Hey, Silas, I have a comment or a clarification. I've talked to a few new agents that were under the impression that they didn't need to read those statements or disclaimers at the end of the ACA application because they thought that the ACA consent form covered that. I don't think the ACA consent form covers that. You have to read all of those statements and get them to agree to that because it does cover that whole income factor there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think you've got to have these conversations with clients. The other thing that is at the end of that ACA application that the client has to agree to is they understand that if they're eligible for Medicaid, Medicare, group insurance, they're not eligible for a government subsidy. And so you do run into a lot of people where, they gain access to something else and like, oh no, I want to keep my marketplace plan with my subsidy. If you have access to insurance elsewhere, you're probably not eligible for a federal government subsidy.
Just read everything.
Sense. The government says if you have somebody else subsidizing you or another government entity like Medicare or Medicaid or the VA subsidizing your insurance, we as the federal government are not going to subsidize you. Those federal government subsidies are for people who do not have access to group insurance through an employer platform and don't have access to insurance through any other government entity. And that's one of the other, I think, statements at the end of that application that the client really needs to understand. And whether you read it to them verbatim or you have a conversation and explain it to them, I think both are okay, but you just want to make sure you're very, very clear about those things. And it is terrible. I'll tell you, in the early years of Obamacare, it was probably 2014 or 2015. I had a client, they were living on like $24,000 of retirement income. Back then, him and his wife qualified for just over $2,000 a month of government subsidies. So they were getting $24,000 of government subsidies over the course of the year. He called me on April 15th screaming because his accountant or CPA was telling him that he was owed this $24,000 back. And he thought it was something I did. As we dug deeper into it, we realized he had taken money out of an investment account to put a down payment on a condo in Nashville, Tennessee. And so he spiked his income by a couple $100,000, which caused him to lose all of his government subsidies at the end of the year. So that's one of the conversations I have with my clients is be careful about doing things that create additional taxable income, like whatever that might be, because there's various things they could do that we'd have no control over. We wouldn't even know about. They may not think about it mid-year, and then they just get hammered when they go to file their taxes at the end of the year. So just make sure you're very, very clear about that. Any other questions about that?
I'm going to add something to that. Because of that, that makes our GRIC supplemental products so important for the people who have money, who say, well, I don't really need those products. I got money in the bank. If they get any kind of subsidy at all, pulling money out of the bank is the worst idea in the world, because they'll get triple tax consequence. It'll be taxed as income. If they're under 59.5, it'll be penalized. But the biggest thing is they'll pay some or all of their subsidies back. So use that in your conversation for the people who have money, especially if they qualify for a subsidy. Again, if they don't qualify for a subsidy, you probably can't do a lot to them. But other than saying, why would you want to take money and pay taxes out of that when we can shift the risk to the insurance company? Because if you have all this money, you can afford the premium. Because again, a lot of people that, well, these people have money, they don't want the subs. No, you're not creating the right kind of pain to get them to see why it's important. So that's just a little side note.
A little Sandler there is what that is. So, well, thank you for that, Cav. So I feel like we've covered a lot today and a lot of different topics. I believe the next couple of ADTs are probably going to be similar to this, where we've just got like stuff I've got to discuss and chat through with you, and hopefully in an effort to get you all really, really prepared to take advantage of this enormous opportunity that's in front of us. I would encourage all of you. I resent the link last night or yesterday afternoon for Kevin McIntyre's talk last week. I thought he was very, very good in what he did, but I also would encourage, push, ask, beg each of you to make presenting supplemental insurance a part of the conversation. It just needs to be a part of it every time. The client can make a decision whether or not they want those products, but I think it's our job as their advisor, as someone that they're coming to for expert advice, to talk to them about the gaps and holes and what we can do to fill those gaps and holes. You know, people talk about, I'll give you a quick story. So I talked to Kevin yesterday and just said, hey, thanks for doing that. You did such a great job. And he's like, it's so crazy because I had a client come in today, I think it was yesterday, and he said, even though I gave that speech, I almost didn't talk about supplemental insurance with this client. And the big thing that was happening was this client was moving from Kentucky to Indiana. And so they were moving from a place that they had a like $185 per month give back on their Medicare Advantage plan. So they were getting paid $185 to be on that plan. And I think he said that the most he could get up here was like $130 on a give back. And so these people came in and he started talking through it. And in his mind, he's like, they're already losing in the give back just by moving to Indiana. They're losing $50 per month per person. And he acknowledged that. And he said, because of that, I almost didn't talk to him about supplemental insurance because they were already paying $50 a month more just to move to Indiana and be on the plan they needed to be on with Humana here. He said, but I stopped myself because I reminded myself that I committed to talk to everybody about this. He just presented it as he always does. And those clients ended up spending another $140, $70 a piece on supplemental insurance to fill the gaps. And it was a big deal because the give back plan that he was putting them on had over a $9,000 out-of-pocket maximum, right? And so their rationale was, we're going to spend $70 a month per person to help offset the potential of this $99,000 out-of-pocket maximum. And it made all the sense in the world to them. They were better protected. They were happier with the purchase. And honestly, Kevin made a lot more money because he sold $140 a month of GRIC product. So, and I'm telling you this, and I'm feeling very convicted myself because there are times where I take the easy path and I think I'm in too much of a hurry. Somebody's waiting on me. I don't have time to do this. And I don't discuss the products. I'm making the commitment personally to at least show these products every single time and make it a part of the process. So go back and watch Kevin's commentary from Friday. I think it was right at 30 minutes long, but I think it'd be worth watching that again before you get into your consultations with your clients this week. Many of you will start those conversations tomorrow. So I'd say watch the video tonight, get ready for it. And then obviously we'll have A lot more intel, I think, next Monday after we've had a chance to run numbers and things, and figure out what's going on, in the different markets that we serve. So before I wrap up, we're at the top of the hour. What else? What else do you guys have?
I just want to clarify or verify whatever I put a new client in FactFinder, downloaded the PDF, and it does port all that into VanillaSoft. So
you have to download the PDF. I mean, was that the trigger to get it in there? I wonder if it would have happened.
That I don't know, but I downloaded the PDF and I checked VanillaSoft and it is in there. I didn't have to go to Quote Connect. So I'm going to be working this into my new process. So new agents, I'm on that Zoom live transfer session tonight from 5 to 7.
Please jump on with Justin, guys. If you're not cranking right now and busier than you want to be, jump on with Justin in the evening and make sure that you at least understand his process. He's become really good at working live transfers. And for many of you, that's going to be the gold that you're going to have here for the next 90 days. So thank you for doing that, Justin.
Silas Holtze here. I'm trying today to contact all our carriers with when they're sunsetting plans and finding out exactly if they want to go back to a supplement or do a supplement, what we could sell. So I'm going to shoot emails to all our contacts and try to develop a form that I can send out to you. Knowing whether it's that we can do a G or whether we can do an N, or how they operate on the GI type plans.
That's great, Holtze. I appreciate you doing the work and the intel on that and putting the intel together. So for those of you who may not understand what Holtze's talking about, if you have a client who's on a Medicare Advantage plan and that Medicare Advantage plan is truly going away next year, that triggers a qualifying event and a special enrollment period for them to move into a Medicare supplement plan on a guaranteed issue basis. Now, you got to be careful with that, though, because first of all, in the state of Michigan and many other states, a lot of insurance companies will pay a minuscule commission to enroll a client in a guaranteed issue Medicare supplement. When it's guaranteed issue, they may be taking very bad risk, and many carriers don't want guaranteed issue risk, right? Because they don't have any choice on whether or not they accept that risk. I will say in the state of Indiana, there is a law just in the state of Indiana that insurance companies have to pay the same rate for guaranteed issue that they pay for open enrollment and underwritten products when it comes to med supps. So I think we're good in Indiana. The only caveat in Indiana is some of the carriers will not offer like a Plan G, which is the most popular Medicare supplement plan, on a guaranteed issue basis. So we've got to identify which carriers, and there's been a lot of question around that, and I just haven't had the time to figure it all out yet. I would say that while that sounds like an opportunity, I would also believe that most people on a Medicare Advantage plan who are paying $0 or a couple dollars a month in premium would find it difficult later in life to go to a med supp with a standalone prescription drug plan, because they could easily be spending $200, $250, $300, $350 a month. And that's a massive premium increase to do that. But if somebody's really sick and they're losing their Medicare Advantage plan, just know that that's something you have kind of in your back pocket, that you could move them to a Medicare supplement plan if that plan's going away, guaranteed issue.
I'm also going to ask in Indiana about this birthday deal as well.
Okay.
What plans are available?
Convoluted right now. So there's a new rule going into effect, I think next year. I don't think it starts till next year.
Oh, it doesn't start in 2026?
I think it starts in 2026.
Yeah. Okay.
Not in 2025 though. But
right.
Some of the states are doing this. Is, in my opinion, kind of jacked up. But they're basically saying in the month of your birthday, you can switch Medicare supplement plans and go to any other plan guaranteed issued during that month. The problem I see with that, again, is insurance companies don't want that business. They don't want sick people moving to their plans. So they're going to build walls and things to prevent people from doing that, or not pay us to move people like that. So I think we've got to be careful with that, but it is a new law in the state of Indiana that I think is supposed to kick in next year. I kind of figured we'd maybe focus on that a little bit more in January.
And that's from the same, like a Plan G to a Plan G. You can't go from a Plan G to like an N or anything like that.
Don't know.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm gonna try to find out those, I'm gonna shoot emails to all our Indiana contacts and find out what they know.
Okay. Whatever you know, you find out, Holtzy, I'll try to disseminate that information out. So,
Okay,
all right, friends, I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you pulled something from today. There was a lot of information we covered. Next week, I was going to talk through leads. I'll talk through leads next week because I do want to give you guys some insights on lead orders, how to set them up, some things that we can begin doing. I think we're going to have corporate bundles for drip text and email strings here shortly as well. So we'll talk more about that next week. So tune back in next week. Good luck this week. Hopefully everybody survives the first week of AEP. If you need something, don't hesitate to reach out to Sandra, myself, Cav, or the rest of the team. Take care, everybody. See ya.